Hello, this is Oscillator Sync. Recently, Arturia brought out a new firmware for the BeatStep Pro, version 2.0 of the BeatStep Pro. And one of their big headline features that they talked about in their marketing material and that I mentioned quite heavily in my videos covering the new features was Polyrhythm. But here's the thing. Arturia didn't introduce Polyrhythm in this new update. What they actually introduced is something called Polymeter. Now, in my videos, I talked about it being called Polyrhythm, as do Arturia in their marketing material, and I caught a bit of flack for that on Reddit and in the comments, and rightly so. It's the wrong term for something that is quite well defined. However, I've seen lots of other places where the two terms have been conflated. So I thought, rather than being part of the problem, I'd try and be part of the solution and put out a video talking about what the difference between these two ideas actually is in the context of the BeatStep Pro, because they are two quite different things. So let's start by talking about Polymeter, which is what Arturia actually introduced into the drum track specifically, but I'm going to look at it in the melodic tracks because it's a little bit easier to demonstrate. So, Polymeter occurs when you have two musical figures or sequences, if you like, in the case of the BeatStep Pro, which share a common pulse. So there's a pulse, so the notes would fall upon one of those little clicks there, for example. A common pulse, but that have different lengths, so different number of beats, if you like. So let's take a look at two little sequences here. So the first one, in sequencer 1, I've got a beat, or rather a sequence which is 8 pulses long. Okay, nice, just simple figure there. Over here in sequencer 2, I also have another little sequence, but this time it's 6 pulses or beats long. Very pretty. So both of these sequences, when you listen to them, have this shared pulse, but they are different lengths. What I also did on each of these sequences, put a little bit of emphasis on that first beat in the bar each time, just by adjusting the velocity, because that's what you would do naturally when you were playing in two different time signatures. You emphasise that first beat in the bar. Now, if we listen to those two sequences together, you get this wonderful overlapping quality that adds complexity to what are otherwise quite simple musical ideas. If we really want to emphasise what's going on there, we can actually put rests on every other beat of the bar and just listen to that first note in each of their respective bars, and you hear this very clear overlapping that you get. So we don't have to have a note playing on each of those pulses, but you can still see quite clearly that those pulses all happen at the same time. And if we start to put some rests in, we can get quite interesting musical ideas happening from quite simple individual ideas. Isn't that nice? Beautiful. Okay, so that there is Polymeter. Two musical figures which share the same pulse, but that are of different lengths. Now, Arturia did all of this big talk about introducing polyrhythm into the BeatStep Pro, but the funny thing is that polyrhythm's actually been in the BeatStep Pro right from the start, right from the first version of the BeatStep Pro. And it's accessed via the triplet function here. So What I'm going to do on my figure here with the 6 beats here is I'm going to turn on the triplet function. I'm going to put it into quarter notes rather than eighth notes. So let's talk about polyrhythm. So whereas Polymeter, a shared pulse but different length bars, Polyrhythm have different pulses but the bars line up to be the same length anyway. So again, this is a sequence of 1 on its own. Okay, you can hear how long that is. If we listen to sequence of 2, you can hear that the pulse there is different, but they actually line up perfectly when you get to the start of each bar. So let's have a listen. So you can hear that there's none of that sort of shifting and overlapping that we were getting with Polymeter. Instead what you get is a shifting within the bar. It's quite a different musical idea, and you can do quite interesting things by changing this from maybe quarter triplets to eighth triplets. And it's a lovely effect, and it's really very, very useful. But that's polyrhythm, and that's always been in the BeatStep Pro. Now, in this case, we've only got one type of polyrhythm, which is triplets over quarter notes, essentially. But it's still something that's quite useful and nice to explore. Okay, so I hope that made sense, and I hope you can see the difference between Polymeter and polyrhythm. And they're both really useful musical ideas. It's just that we need to be careful not to call one the other, because as I've shown, hopefully, they are quite different things. Really hope that was useful, and I hope this, for the people that were annoyed that I got the two terms mixed up, I hope this makes amends for that misstep. As always, thank you for watching, and if you enjoy the video, please do like and subscribe, and check back for other videos soon. Cool.